Okay, so we're holding Kohelet. We started Perek Zayin, 7th chapter. Last week, we quoted the first pasuk about how important a good name is more than anything else. If one has acquired a good name for himself in his lifetime, that is truly a tremendous accomplishment. As the pasuk says, Tov Shem Yeshem Tov Yom HaMavet Miyom Yivaledo. Then a good name is of course achieved throughout one's lifetime, and that is determined upon one's death, not when one is born. We do not know what one will be like when he's born. And that is with the Yom HaMavet, the day of death, is better than Yom Yivaledo, from the day one was born. A good name, a good reputation is something worthwhile making an effort achieving. Everything else doesn't matter as much. We don't take it with us. Many things depend on one's mazal. This is a true accomplishment. This is something that one gets credit for, deserves tremendous credit for. He was a good man, a good husband, a good father, a good neighbor, a good friend, and so forth. In this perek, Shlomo Melech continues to tell us where one should spend his time, what is worthwhile to do. We have to know what our priorities are. So what is something that is really considered a good thing to do? He mentions Tov lalechet el bet evel milechet el bet mishteh. There are times in life where we have all kinds of things that we want to do, many activities, many things that we want to accomplish, and there isn't enough time for everything. So he sorts those things out. What is truly something worthwhile your time? Tov lalechet bet evel, he says, one place where you may gain a lot by going there is the house of mourning, where people are mourning for somebody who had just recently passed away, right? They say Shiv'ah. That place is much better than, for example, Milechet el Bet Mishteh, from going to a party. Now, a party obviously is not a big deal. So what else could he mean by a party at Bet Mishteh? It even includes a Chatunah, a wedding. So a Mishteh, even though it means a party, it's not obviously just a simple barbecue, right? Mishteh is, even if it's a Mishteh of Simcha, of Mitzvah, still going to the house of mourning, if you cannot do both of them, which one should come first? Which one is more important? You can only do one. You cannot go to both. He says you may want to consider going to the Bet Evel. Why? Since that is the end of everyone. In the end, everyone will be mourning for one. In the end, death comes to all of us. If that's the case, when one participates in the house of mourning and he sits down with those who are in mourning, those of us who are still alive, will consider what has just happened, will begin to digest it, that hey, one of these days this is going to happen to us too. And this will hopefully awaken one. Because of our routine, because of what we do throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the month, we sometimes forget ourselves. What are we here for? Is life only about work? So Baruch Hashem, there are certain things that stop us. Shabbat stops us, of course. Baruch Hashem stops us as long as we keep Shabbat. The holidays stop us as long as we observe the holidays. And here comes along something that, of course, is sudden. It's not on the calendar of anyone, I hope, right? That somebody dies. We don't know. It happens suddenly. And we go, and here we are shocked, especially if the man was a young man, right? Then it's even more shocking. Then it really hits home, as they say in English. Wow. You know, he barely had a chance to, he just got married, he just whatever. He just finished college, he just finished high school, whatever it is. You know, he barely got his feet wet, as they say in English. He just started life. A young flower, Hashem Yishmor, God forbid. We should never hear of these kind of cases. But it is shocking, and it's not just a mitzvah that we're doing by going there, it's a hayiten libo. It actually is intended for us too. It's therefore a benefit for one to be in a house of mourning because of what he will gain from this as well. That's one idea here. Besides the priorities, besides prioritizing and telling us how important it is compared to other activities which are important to us, there's the additional mitzvah that we're actually fulfilling by being menachem the avel, by comforting those who are in mourning. What's behind the mitzvah of giving nechama, comfort, consolation to the avel? We can't bring back the niftar. We can't bring back the dead. So how can we calm him down? How can we give him encouragement? In what way are we fulfilling this mitzvah? Just by being there? The answer is yes. You'd be surprised, but the fact that people come to the house of mourning and share in the pain and in the loss of that individual, it is a chatzi. Rabbi tells us it's a form of chatzi nechama. It's a half a consolation. It's better than nothing. It's like, oh, I'm not the only one in pain here. I'm not the only one with this loss, grieving. These individuals, these friends or not friends, are here with me. In other words, they identify with this pain and with this loss as though it would be theirs. They really are. As of course, hopefully, their people are sincere. And the fact that they took their time to come and spend time with me, right, with the one who's in mourning, sitting Shiva, all by himself or with his family, still it does do something to the individual. Otherwise, there wouldn't be such a mitzvah. Rabbis tell us that this is a real chesed. The Torah doesn't command us, there's no mitzvah in the Torah to go comfort the dead. It doesn't say, go comfort the dead, or go visit the sick. It's all under the category of gemilut chasadim, or being kind to another individual. You can be kind by being charitable to him, by visiting him when he's sick, by comforting him, by even going to the funeral. And that funeral, by the way, is not only for the mourners, it's actually for the niftar, but the niftar he's not awake. He's gone, he's dead. Still, he's aware. The person who passed away is aware of his own funeral. He can see us, we can't see him. So it's a big mitzvah, as they say in English, to give him his last respect. This is a kavod for him, that we go and we accompany him to the burial, or at least we go to the eulogy, that we're there for the niftar. And if we need to, we ask even mechila, we ask forgiveness from him or from her. If there was anything that we did that offended him during his life, that is the last opportunity you have, other than going to the grave later on. So these opportunities are important. And rabbis tell us that the big advantage of going to a house of mourning versus going to somebody's wedding is for a simple reason. If you miss the wedding, you can tell your friend, sorry I couldn't make it this time. Next time, B'ezrat Hashem, I see you at the coming wedding. Could you say that when you do not come to a house of mourning? I'm sorry I didn't come this time, but next time. It's not, you don't say that. You can't say that. So because you can't say next time by a house of mourning, you just go the first time. You go the only time, hopefully. With smachot, B'ezrat Hashem yirbu smachot b'Yisrael. Let there be many, many occasions for us to rejoice with each other's smachot. You miss one, nothing happens. It's not the end of the world. Obviously, if you can come for a few minutes, it's also meaningful. People enjoy it, people like it. Obviously, it makes a difference to some people more than to others. But when you compare the two and you don't know which one to go to, we need priorities. Shlomo Melech tells us this is priority. Compared to a chatunah, which is also a mitzvah, to gladden the hearts of the chatan and kala, to be there for them, to be there at their simcha. But sometimes you can't do both. Well, bet evel is more important. If you can do both, then of course go do both. Spend some time here, some time there. But if you can't, Shlomo Melech is telling us the benefits of going to bet evel because of hay yiten libo. The ones of us who are still alive will gain something from this too, besides the mitzvah. Now, what are you supposed to do or say when you go to a house of mourning? When we leave, there's a custom to say, may God comfort you. Ashkenazim say, "Amakom yinachem otchem betoch shar avalei Tzion v'Yerushalayim." May God comfort you amongst the mourners of Zion in Jerusalem. Ultimately, what we're saying to the mourner is, the real nechama, the real consolation will come from Hashem. Why? Because He will bring back the dead, at Tchiyat HaMetim, when the dead will rise. So that real nechama will eventually come only from Him. We can't do that job. We're here to share in your pain. These are words that you say when you leave. These are words that you say to show that, may those who in mourning really receive comfort. But as you're sitting there in front of the one who is in mourning, what else could you say? What else could you do? This is a very, very tricky and sensitive area. You don't want to say the wrong thing. Imagine somebody coming there, somebody got killed in an accident, somebody died to you when he was very young. Oh, what did he die from? That's so insensitive. These are not the kind of things you say. People don't know what to say. Sometimes people say the wrong things. They only make things worse. One has to be extremely careful what he says to the one who's in mourning. That is why the custom is, the halakha says, not to talk, not to begin talking until the mourner asks of you something. Let him begin. Let him in the conversation, because you don't know, maybe he's not in the mood. So it's a very sensitive area. Imagine going to visit somebody who's very sick in the hospital. He has a terrible, deadly disease. And you come and tell him, oh, this is what you have. I know somebody exactly like you with the exact same thing that died at the age of 26. You just, basically shattered his hopes that he had. I know somebody exactly like that. What are you doing? But some people are not tactful. Some people really don't know what to say. If you don't know what to say, don't say anything. It's better than saying the wrong thing. So in a house of mourning, and in these kind of situations, visiting the sick, which is a big mitzvah, one should also be careful what he says. Another advantage of going to a house of mourning is as follows. The rabbis tell us when one has a very powerful yetzer hara, the evil inclination is really overpowering him, and he doesn't know what to do. He's really having a hard time with his yetzer hara. Whatever yetzer hara it may be anger too, all kinds of yetzarim that people may have. One way to get rid of it, is to learn Torah. You come to the Bet Midrash, you open a book, start learning, hopefully the Torah will calm one down. There are all kinds of solutions depending on which yetzer we're talking about. But the common denominator is that the Torah definitely helps the yetzer hara. The rabbis tell us, I created the yetzer hara, Hashem says, but I also created the Torah as an antidote, a tavlin. It actually calms the yetzer hara. It actually takes away some of that strength that the yetzer hara has, at least momentarily. What if it doesn't work? What if learning is not enough? So the rabbis prescribe something even more powerful medication. Tazkir lo et yom hamitah. Remind yourself the day of death. How can I do this or think of doing that if one day they're going to be taking me to to bury me? In other words, when you start having thoughts of death, it's very depressing. People don't like to think about that, right? But the Chachamim knew this, so they said sometimes that may be the only cure, temporary cure, for a situation that the Torah, the learning of the Torah, is not sufficient. Go to a cemetery. I tell some people, just go to a hospital and see how people are doing there. You'll see people really in all kinds of situations, very difficult situations, and you say to yourself, thank God, Baruch Hashem, my kidneys are working, I can see, I can hear, I'm walking with my own feet on my own, and hopefully be thankful to Hashem for what you have. People take things for granted. Go to a hospital and see how worse off other people are. So these kind of observations, these kinds of thoughts
sometimes help us in life. Rabbis tell us, for example, the whole reason why there are there's thunders, lightning. What is it for? I mean, we can explain it through physics, how there is thunder and how there is lightning. But what did Hashem make these things for? Why does there have to be this noise that shakes people up? Well, that's exactly the whole idea of shaking people up sometimes. Because the heart has a little bit of a slant, the rabbis tell us. It's akum, it's crooked. And sometimes, people are inclined to do the wrong thing. So comes along a thunder, and it really shakes them up. And that little thunder sometimes is enough to straighten people out.
So many things in this world help to straighten people out. This is one where, of course, it's voluntary to go to a house of mourning. You don't have to go, it's not an obligation, it's a mitzvah. But if one does go, he will gain from it because he will be reminded of something that he maybe does not have on his mind 24 hours a day. And this could actually help him. So that is why it's something to consider and not to take lightly and not to say, he's not going to miss me. He's going to have a lot of people come to his home anyway. It's not just for him, it's for us too. That's why it's important to go there. He goes on to the next pasuk. Lev chachamim bevet evel velev kesilim bevet simcha. The rabbis, the chachamim, are continuously serious in life. Even though they are at a wedding, they don't lose control. They don't get drunk. To them, there should always be a bet evel in the heart. In other words, a house of mourning. In other words, a room of mourning, a place of mourning. In other words, it's not that they're depressed, you're not allowed to be depressed, you're not allowed to be sad. But it's that they take life seriously. They're always cognizant of the fact that life is short, and it's one day going to come to an end. Time is precious. I better make good use of it. The day that is gone completely and will not come back. So that's what he says here, that Lev Chachamim, the heart of the Chacham, is always, in a sense, bevet evel. He's always considering these thoughts. As opposed to who? Lev Kesirim bevet simcha. The heart of the fools is always joyous, fun, let's kill time, play, go on vacation. That's the Ksil. The Ksil is a fool who does not take things seriously. A Chacham is serious about life, a Ksil is not serious about life. What a difference. You can see it in their attitude, you can see it in their demeanor, you can see it in what they do during their free time, when they're not working. What does one do with their free time? So this is a great difference between two individuals, where his thoughts are, what he's thinking about, where he's focused on. Another very interesting insight, perhaps we can call it an insight, is the difference between the Jews and the non-Jews when it comes to birthdays. Jews don't really celebrate birthdays. Think about it. What's a birthday? You're getting one day closer to death. What's there to celebrate? It's depressing. Why celebrate a birthday? Unless you're celebrating, you go, thank God I'm still alive. Thank God I'm one day older, Baruch Hashem, and in good health. The Gemara does quote that there is one birthday to celebrate. That's the age 60. Because when you hit 60, you are beyond the point of karet. Karet is a cutoff point where, Chas v'shalom, if somebody deserves karet, to be cut off, to die prematurely before his time, he dies before 60. Now, that does not mean that anybody who died before 60 died of karet. It could be that it was meant for him to live to 52. Shemuel HaNavi, the prophet, Shlomo HaMelech himself, they lived to the age of 52. And that was their life. It does not mean, therefore, anybody who died before 60 died of karet. Chas v'shalom, don't think that. And karet can happen later on too, because karet means to decrease the amount of years that this individual was supposed to live, because unfortunately he did something wrong, for which he never did teshuvah. That is, a person does proper teshuvah, then he doesn't have to go through karet. So there was one rabbi who made a party, a simcha, on his 60th birthday. Baruch Hashem, he's out of the karet. He's not 100% safe. Anything can still happen, but at least from karet he's out. Yes.
But doesn't karet also apply to the world to come?
Yes, that's a different kind of karet. That's I call a heavy-duty karet. That's the most difficult karet of all, where the neshama does not rise.
But
karet karet hanefesh. If it's a double language, karet means completely karet, cut off completely from the Jewish people, from its source.
Could it be that somebody lives past the age of 60, but he's karet?
Of course, yeah. Yeah, because sometimes Hashem rewards someone in this world for one mitzvah that he did, and he gives them a nice life to the age of 102. That's his reward. Long life, no hospital, no major pain and suffering, no major losses of money. His investments are the best investments, right? He never loses. You know, you start worrying about this man. If everything is perfect, it could be Hashem is paying him off in this world. God forbid, we don't want that to happen. So most of people in the world have some ups and downs. They get a little sick, they go through some mishap, some problem, somebody hit their car, and it was a what do you call it?
Hit and run.
A hit and run, and you can't even collect, and your insurance is high deductible. So here you're, you know, we all go through something that is painful, and Baruch Hashem, as we're going to talk about it soon, that pain is to our benefit. It cleans us up. Every pain, the rabbis tell us, even if it happens, you went out of the door, or your front door, you went towards your car. Said, oh no, I forgot in the dining room or in the kitchen, I forgot to take my lunch with me, or I forgot something I was going to take with me. So you have to go back into your home and go back into your car. Do you know that going back is pain? The rabbis consider that pain because you had to do something you shouldn't have had to do it. You forgot. It's mi'ashamayim. Even putting your hands into the pocket, you want to take out a quarter, and instead what comes out is a penny. Oh no. Where is that quarter? You stick your hand in the pocket again. Rabbis consider that pain. It's incredible, but that's too. You know how sometimes you're cutting salad, vegetables? And sometimes you cut your finger a little bit. We're not even talking about a lot, and God forbid, just a little bit of a cut, a little bit of a, right? That's kapara, that's an atonement. That's very painful. It could be for something as simple as you got upset at someone that you shouldn't have. And that kapara sometimes happens within the same day. Sometimes the kaparot happen within a month. Sometimes they happen after a couple years for something that happened years ago, 2-3 years ago. Hashem doesn't always take care of the kapara of the atonement immediately. Something that was done wrong is eventually accounted for. The question is when. We don't know. Hashem has his reasons why he takes care of certain things right away. Some things he takes care of within 2-3 years. Some things he takes care of when we are single. Some things he takes care of when we are married. Some things he takes care of once the children are married. So the kids, when they're young, don't have to suffer their parents' sins. Right? The kids don't deserve it. So Hashem allows the kids to grow up. Then the parents are by themselves, and then a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit this. See, but the kids are not feeling it as much because they're adults themselves. That's better than imagine a parent who's suffering and the children are still young. It's difficult on them. Or worse than that, what if the children are left orphans? Not every child deserves to be left an orphan. So Hashem says, you know what, that father, I'm going to keep him alive for 10-15 years, even though he doesn't deserve it. He could have left just as easily now. I'm going to keep him just because those kids are good kids. They don't deserve to lose their father. But what happens to the father's kapara if he needs it? Hashem says, I'll take care of it later in different ways. I'll get him somebody to swindle him. Yeah. You've heard of people being swindled, right? It happens. And that swindle was a lot of money, and it was a big kapara. But you know what? It's better to lose money than to lose your health. So leave it to the boss. He knows how to do it in the right time, the right amount, as much as we can handle. So all of this, of course, hopefully we are reminded of a little bit when we go through difficult times, or we go to somebody else who's going through a difficult time, and to empathize with him, whether it's a loss of somebody dear to him or something else. So this is also, as we said, a good eitzah, a good piece of advice for the Yetzer Hara. If the Yetzer Hara is really giving him a hard time, think of thoughts that are a little bit related to death. Maybe it will shake us up. So we were talking about birthdays. So Jewish people are not so much into birthdays. What do we celebrate? We actually celebrate death. It sounds strange. What does it really mean? When we go to somebody's funeral, don't be surprised if you hear a rabbi saying, we're here to celebrate so-and-so's life. See? We're here to celebrate his life. Why? Because Baruch Hashem, he was a great man or woman. Great individual. This is what he accomplished. This is what she has accomplished during her lifetime. She was kind. She was so devoted. You know, there are great people who, Baruch Hashem, have accomplished a lot in their lifetime. And upon their death is the time to celebrate their life. Not on their birthdays. That's really a non-Jewish tradition. We, the Jews, of course, we celebrate birthdays too, because it's more of a tradition in the world today that, you know, blow out the candles, you know, and get yourself a cake, and, you know, and especially for kids. Okay, there's nothing wrong with it. I'm not saying you shouldn't. It's just not really part of our tradition. It's not that important. But to celebrate one's death, a man or woman's death, yes, it could be that there is something to say good about them. By the way, it better be true. You don't want to say a lie or an exaggeration on one's eulogy, because then the niftar, the soul of whoever it is we're talking about, will be in great pain when things that are false are being said about them. They are actually pained by it. It hurts them. So you want to be careful what you say if you're eulogizing a person, how they were. But we are hopefully celebrating their life, because the day of death is more important, because we can look back and say, look, what he has done with the 40 years or with the 80 years. The years are not important. It's what he or she did that matters. Some people spend less time here, some people spend more time. So it's not so much the time that we're looking at. We're looking at what was done in that time that was given to this individual. And Baruch Hashem, you know, sometimes we are actually celebrating the fact that they've left this world with a good name. Then there's, of course, in Jewish tradition, we have the Yortzeit. You know what the Yortzeit is? That's a Yiddish word, a German word. Yortzeit, the time of the year of the passing of an individual. The Askara, as it's called in Hebrew, or Hilulah for the big tzaddikim. For us, it's significant, the day of passing. Not only does it show a connection with the departed soul, not only does it show that we have emunah and faith in the survival of the soul, in other words, that the spirit continues to exist in a different realm, but it's still there, and there's a connection. We say Kaddish for it, we light a candle for it. I mean, if they're gone, they're gone. What are you doing? We obviously show that we believe in their existence, and the Kaddish says that one day they will rise. Kaddish is a very powerful prayer of God's name being sanctified. When will God's name be sanctified? The greatest of all, the most of all? When the dead will rise. Because the whole world will be in shock. The only one who can accomplish that is Hashem. So Yitgadal v'Yitkadash Shemei Rabbah, on that day, when the dead will rise, when Mashiach will come. So by us saying this prayer, this is a tremendous zechut merit for the niftar. We're actually giving him or her a boost. They can no longer on their own do any mitzvot once they have left this world. That's it. It's finished. Finito la comedia, right? That's it. But we, the relatives, the children, and even friends, can do something. Not a lot, something for the aliyah of the soul. Aliyah means the soul can go one step higher every year, on the year of the Yortzeit, until they finally get to their resting place where they stop. So that continuous growth or boost can come about through certain mitzvot that we do for their sake. Charity in their name, Kaddish, and the learning of Mishnayot. These three are the most powerful. Right, all the other traditions, the lighting of the candle, they're all important. There are a lot of things that we can do for them. Obviously, if the kids continue to behave themselves and observe the mitzvot as their parents did, that brings tremendous nachat ruach. It brings a source of satisfaction and happiness to those departed souls too. That their kids, who are their emissaries and representatives in this world, are continuing to live according to the standards that the parents set up. If they do not, it obviously will pain them. Even though they're no longer alive, there's still some connection. There's still some awareness of what's going down in this world. So look at Judaism. How much Judaism ascribes importance to the day of death, to the day of the Yortzeit, to to that connection that still is there. Next. Tov lishmoa garat chacham mi'ish shomea shir kesilim. It is better to hear the criticism, the shout of a chacham, of a wise man, than to hear the song of a fool. What is he talking about here? In other words, nobody likes to hear criticism. And this is a gara. Gara is somebody yelling, somebody harshly criticizing. What he's saying is like this. You have a choice between going to the circus, going to see a show, a comedy, or going to a shiur where you may hear tough words. You may hear a gara. You may hear some Torah that will, I mean, it's Torah, but that will disturb you a little bit. Well, what's better? It's better to hear the gara of the chacham. It's better to go to a shiur than to go to a soccer game. How many people, unfortunately, cannot miss the Super Bowl? Right? They actually make an appointment with their TV set. They buy the beer and they get the popcorn and they invite their friends to see the Super Bowl. I mean, how could you miss a Super Bowl? Nothing wrong, we should know, with sports by themselves. Once in a while, playing a game, if you're in good physical shape, watching a game. I mean, it's okay a little bit here and there. I mean, the problem is with those who worship it, who really put too much of their time into this. That's when it begins to become a problem. Because life is precious. Time is precious. How can it be wasted on this when there's so many other things that are more important in it? And you don't have the time for both. And I'm always reminded, I sometimes get a gift, a book. You know, I'd like to give you a book to read, or lend you a book. You must read this. And I tell the people, I have one problem with your gift, or with the book you're giving me. It's going to have to wait online for 12 years before I will read to it. Oh, why is that? Because I have a whole bunch of other books that I haven't read yet. Why are you asking me to read this now? What you're basically doing is forcing me to let go another book, another activity, and replace it with this reading of this book. Unless it's something very, very important, how could I do that? I mean, we don't have unlimited time. If I start reading a book, I better be able to justify the time given to reading that book. And what if it's a novel? It's a complete waste of time because it's not true. It's a complete figment of the imagination of an author. At least if it was true facts, it was history, Jewish history. History about the Holocaust. A story about how somebody got saved. All right, maybe I can get something from it. It's warming, it's encouraging, it's stimulating. Okay, that's some benefit. But what are you going to get from a novel? You're going to increase your English vocabulary? I mean, right? So that's the problem with priorities. We have to be extremely careful with priorities. So he tells us here that it's better to hear a gara of a chacham. It's better to go to a shiur. It's better to speak to somebody who may criticize you, but the gain, the benefit from it, outweighs the schok aksil, the shir kesilim here, the laughter or the song of the fools, philharmonic orchestra. Great. It's classical music. Okay, once in a while. But if that's going to be a routine, and at the same time there is a shiur, that's not a good choice. Another interpretation of the words Tov Garat Chacham, Tov Lishmoa Garat Chacham, Yishomer Asher Ksilim, that it's talking about the criticism or the anger of HaKadosh Baruch Hu on tzaddikim. Sometimes a tzaddik suffers, sometimes a tzaddik is in pain. And as we said earlier, any pain, any illness is a kapara. And anything that happens in this world is much better than if it happens in the world to come, because at least we get cleaned up here before we head up there. So in some ways, it is better for us to hear or to accept what the pain that happens here as opposed to the calmness of life that others may have. Because if they have it calm and easy, nothing happens to them at all, we need to be worried about them. That perhaps they're getting the whole olam haba in this olam hazeh. So, tov lishmoa garat chacham, it is important that we accept Hashem, here in this case, Hashem's pain to on us, than to chas shalom be rebellious and complain and say, why? Why is this coming to me? What did I do wrong? It's not a good thing to complain. Rabbis tell us if you complain too much, you get double. You don't want to get double. If you don't complain and you keep your mouth shut, you keep silent, and you say, Gamzu l'tova, it's all for the good, then it may have the effect of atoning on many, many sins of the past. So it's always best to just keep quiet and not say anything and accept things the way they are. And definitely not take revenge from people who have been not kind to us. Because even though they are responsible, they are guilty, and they're definitely doing the wrong thing, if we have absorbed an insult or some pain from them, it's all going to be a kapara. Regardless of who delivers the pain, it's always going to be a kapara. To take revenge is not a good thing. It shows that we do not accept his judgment. Still, we have to try, of course, if there's a way out of the problem, we have to try to find all kinds of ways to deal with it. If somebody, of course, harmed you, caused you tremendous losses, you can sue him, you can take him to Beit Din. That is one's complete right to do. But if nothing happens after all the efforts are made, one should realize that it was meant to be. It's a kapara. Every little pain that we experience is a kapara. It all adds up eventually. All right, you can go on to the next pasuk. Ki kol hasirim tachat asir ken schok aksil v'gam ze havel. Kol hasirim in this case means the noise that the straw that is being burnt and used as fuel underneath the pot makes. It crackles. It's not, when we cook on top of the stove, there's no noise because it's burning gas. It's clean. Yeah, that was a kapara too. Yeah. Anyway, when you burn coal or other materials to cook up the pot and use it as fuel, you may hear, if you've had a campfire, noise of the crackling of the whatever it is that you're using to burn to make fire. That is what he calls it, kol hasirim. Tachat asir, ken sechok aksir v'gam ze havel. In the same way that you hear the crackling, what does it do? So you're getting a little bit of warmth, you're getting a little bit of fire underneath the pot. Eventually that straw will be consummated, will be consumed. It will disappear. There won't be anything left of it. In the same way, that is the laughter of the ksil. It's all hevel. It's all nothing. It's worthless. It doesn't last. That little crackling, that music, that laughter, the jokes they make, what are you going to gain from it? He made you laugh for a little bit. He cracked the joke, right? It's all eventually going to go away. It does not last. It is not something that is lasting. Just like the straw that warms up the pot makes noise. It also makes noise. It also warms up a little bit the pot. But that's it. That doesn't last long. So is that what you want to do with your time? Is that what we want to do to enjoy ourselves? It's really nothing. It's not worth our time. It's not. It doesn't add up to too much. It won't last. Yeah. I'm going back to another pasuk that we skipped, because this pasuk ties in to the next pasukim. We'll be speaking a little bit about criticism, the benefits of criticism, how listening to the criticism of a rabbi, of a chacham, and even of a friend, a true friend, is worthwhile.
Sometimes people are overconfident. Sometimes people do not realize they're making a mistake. And that's what criticism, as long as it's constructive criticism, that's why criticism is helpful. However, when giving criticism, you have to be careful how you give it. You don't want to show anger. You don't want to lose your temper. It's a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah to give musar, ocheach tocheach et amitecha, as we're going to see. The Torah tells us that if there's a need to rebuke, to reprimand, you do so. You may have the responsibility if you do not. In other words, you may be guilty of not doing something about it. You perhaps could have stopped it. But there's something more to criticism. Sometimes you may have something against someone who did something to you. So you're not criticizing him because you want to teach him how to do things right or how to not do things wrong. You want to, as they say in English, vent it out. Do so. You want to vent it out. If you have something in your heart, don't keep it in your heart. First of all, it's not healthy to keep things inside, buried. Number two, you don't give him a chance to say I'm sorry. So if you keep it inside and you don't tell him how you feel about him or her, you're making things worse. So there are times that we have to criticize. There are times we have to vent it out. We have to talk about something that is bothering us. Nevertheless, be careful not to do it with anger. So now he tells us, okay, but tov kas mischok ki beroa panim yitav lev. So I'm going back to another pasuk there. It is better to hear anger than to hear laughter. Ki beroa panim yitav lev, because when one hears anger or one hears somebody who's very upset, the chances are that he may correct himself. This pasuk is really also talking about the anger of Hashem and tzaddikim. As the rabbis tell us, had Hashem showed anger to the Dor HaMabul, to the generation of the flood, perhaps they would have done teshuvah. He just let them go on. Let him go on, let him go on, let him go on, until the flood came and destroyed them all. Obviously, they were very bad, and that is why he didn't give them a chance. But sometimes when we see that Hashem is upset, I mean, we have to realize that it is for our best, for our benefit. Hashem wants us to do teshuvah. Otherwise, He wouldn't get upset at us. When things are not right, obviously it's a time for action. Nevertheless, when it comes to interpersonal relationships, chaos between people, you have to be very careful not to be angry, because when a person gets angry, he loses control. If anything, a person, if he needs to show that he's angry, show it externally, but internally stay calm. Why? Well, first of all, what's the anger going to do? If there's something that can be fixed, then fix it. If it can't be fixed, then why get angry? You realize the anger does not accomplish anything by itself. If we're dealing with children, chinuch yeladim, the area of raising children, educating children, you sometimes have to show anger to get the point across. Yes, you don't want to pamper, you don't want to spoil a child. So you sometimes have to show that you're angry. That's what the rabbis tell us. David HaMelech made a mistake. David HaMelech made a mistake that he didn't show anger to Adoniyahu, his son, to Avshalom, his son, when they were young children, when they were growing up and they were not always behaving themselves, doing things that were not proper. Torah records it, V'lo atzavo aviv miyamav, that David HaMelech never shaped Adoniyahu ever. He never really reprimanded him. He never said anything negatively about him. And he continued the way he did. It turned out to be a very rebellious child. And of course, the consequences were terrible. He had something that he could have done to prevent that, and he didn't. And that is the reprimand, the rebuke that a father has a responsibility to use. But even when one uses it, you have to be careful. As the rabbis tell us, when it comes to educating one's children or dealing with one's spouse, you always want to use your left hand to rebuke, and you want to use the right hand to embrace. So I explained this in the past. What the rabbis meant were two things. They meant how to deliver it. You deliver the blow with the left hand. It's a blow, it's criticism. And if it's an embrace, you do so with the right hand, with the stronger hand. In other words, the blow, always with the weaker hand, the embrace, always with the right hand. What they also meant, perhaps, was that if you did deliver a blow, you were harsh, you were critical. Make sure that you also embrace, that you also make up for it. Let the other individual not only see one side of you, let them see that you're kind too, you're forgiving, you're sensitive, you are considerate. Let them not only see the blows, let them not only hear your blows. So if you did have to deliver a blow, and I say that when, for example, from time to time we have to say no, big N-O with capital letters, to a request, whether it's coming from a child or from someone else. Sometimes you have to say no. Well, if you did have to say no, in other words, you had to deliver a blow, make sure you somehow find the time to say yes and to embrace that individual with a hug or with whatever it is that you can to make up for the blow that you unfortunately had to deliver. So that's the trick over here, is that sometimes we have to show anger, not be angry. We have to show anger. If that's the case, make sure you know how to do it. All right, let's go on. כי העושק יהולל חכם ויאבד את לב מתנה. Here he speaks about confusion. Oshek, even though oshek means to rob, and here it may perhaps also be interpreted that way, but it also, the context over here, it means confusion. All the confusion that will come to a chacham from a fool, all the confusion of the insults that the ksil, that the fool may lash out at his friend, the chacham. What are you wasting your time learning? What are you wasting your time going to yeshiva? What are you wasting your time going to pray? All this prayer, all this learning, that's a form of oshek. It's a form of bilbul and confusion. Ha'oshek yeholel chacham v'yabed et lev matana. If you are exposed, the Shlomo Melech here is talking about exposure. That's why he mentions this. Chacham, you have to be careful not only to not engage in the activities of the ksil, that he spoke about already before. Don't waste your time. Don't just overdo things that are worthless, things that don't matter so much. Not only that, be careful not to expose yourself to ksil, because ki ha'oshek yeholel chacham v'yabed et lev matana. The confusion that may happen to you as a result of all the exposure is gonna make things worse for you, in the same way that a heart is influenced by a gift. How is a heart influenced by a gift? It is bribed. Right? The Torah warns us about bribery. It warns us about accepting gifts from just anybody. Because it makes you now less objective. Right? You've just been influenced. So, ki ha'oshek yolel chacham. In other words, one form of bribery is this oshek, this confusion, this exposure to the wrong people, that you'll hear what they have to say, and it will drive you crazy. It may actually influence you. That is one interpretation. The other interpretation that I prefer, since oshek really has to do with robbing, is that what the fool will do to you is rob you of your time. And it was ki ha'oshek yolel chacham. The reason he says yeholel is that it will make this chacham not such a chacham. It will dilute his chokhmah. It will make him lightheaded. This whole exposure to the wrong people who are involved in the wrong activities, playing, fun, joking, sheshbesh, right? Backgammon, cards. This is all holilut. This is all foolish things. This is all waste of time. Being exposed to that will rub off. It could rub off on the chacham, and it could weaken him. So he's warning the chacham, stay away from this. Don't be lured into this.
there's all kinds of consequences as a result of exposure to this kind of people. All right, next pasuk. Tov achari davar mireshito. It is better the end of something than the beginning of it. What does it mean the end is better from the beginning? Well, this appears to be similar to what we said before, that a good name at the end of one's life is better, of course, than on the day he was born. As a baby, nobody knows what's going to come out of him. It's the beginning of his life. The end of his life is therefore more significant. So, Tov achari davar mireshito. You could say that it's pretty much connected. He's talking about that the end is better than the beginning, because at the end, it will reflect on the whole life. But he means a lot more than that. Tov achari davar mireshito, I would say, I like to use the English term, better late than sorry. Is that the way they say it in English?
Better late than never.
Better late than never.
Better late than
No, that's something else. Better late than never is something else. What?
Better safe than sorry.
Better safe than sorry, maybe. Yeah. I'll tell you why I said better late. But it's true, better safe. Let's say you're in a rush. We sometimes are in a rush. And we try to beat the red light, right? We try to get ahead. We try to change lanes. Do you know that all that may save us 5 minutes? If you think about it, how much it saved you? Instead of a half an hour drive, you were able, because of doing all those maneuvers, to save yourself 5 minutes. But you know that you were risking your life? You were...
I went to the driveway, the parking driveway.
Right.
I wanted to avoid going around the street, and as I was going through the driveway, the car backed up right into me. But luckily, it just damaged my car.
Yeah, sure.
You're right. All I wanted to say was going around.
Yeah, you have to be yes.
It's actually better late than sorry. Better late than sorry.
Better late than sorry. Yeah, something like that. That's the expression. It's better to be a little bit late, but you're going to be safe. There's another saying, better to lose 1 minute in your life than to lose your life in 1 minute. How do you like that one? Yeah? Tov achari davar mireshito. You want to look at the end and not look at the beginning. What's the beginning? The beginning is telling you, oh, I got to save some time. I got to rush. I got to do this. That's the reshito. You're looking at the picture up front. Look at the picture towards the end. Don't you want to get there safe? So look at that versus looking at the beginning. That's another idea of why he's telling us, always look at the end result of what you want to accomplish. This is what I want to accomplish. I want to get along with this individual. I want to keep him as a friend. I want to stay married. That's achari davar. Then should I get upset? Should I do this? Should I do that? Because initially, that's reshit davar, initially, our impulse or our instinct tells us to do this thing. That's the yetzer. That's called the yetzer hasha'ah, the mefarshim say. The yetzer of that moment is reshit davar, is what you instinctively are thinking of doing. Careful. Be careful on what you instinctively, at the moment, are thinking of doing, because it may be wrong. Instead, try to look at the harit davar. What are you trying to accomplish here? That is why, when it comes to fights at home, if you win, you really are losing. If you win the fight, you've lost the marriage. Does it pay to win the fight? Yes, I won. So what? You lost. People don't understand this. You don't have to win. And if you do, you lose. People are looking at the reshit davar instead of looking at the harit davar. That's foolish. And many of us make that mistake sometimes. We don't realize that because we're upset for some reason. Why be upset? Don't you want to preserve your relationship? Maybe do it in a different way. So Tov achari davar, he reminds us one way of doing things differently is focus differently. Focus on the end result. Wait a minute, what do I want to accomplish here? I want to fix this. I want to do things differently. Okay. So instead of yelling about it or criticizing, then begin to do it differently or show the other person how to do it differently.
The second part of the pasuk is Tov Erech Ruach Migvar Ruach, which really belongs to it. And it's therefore better to be Erech Ruach. Erech Ruach means to be tolerant, to be patient, to be forgiving, than Gvar Ruach, than to be arrogant. In other words, obviously, Ezu Chacham Haroeh et Hanolad, the Rabbi tells us. Who is wise? The one who sees the consequences of his actions. We don't always see the consequences. We don't always realize what they will be. But if you're a Chacham, before you do something, before you say something, you think about it. When it comes to reacting, the same thing. Don't react right away. Tov Erech Ruach. Be tolerant. Wait. Don't react right away than being arrogant and come up with an answer and come up with something to say immediately. That's not so smart. He's obviously telling us about Yisurim Olam Hazeh again. The people who suffer painful experiences in this world, going through a difficult time. It's better to be Erech Ruach, is to be tolerant, to realize that everything has a reason. Nothing happens by chance for no reason. And it's obviously, it would be a mistake for us to believe that those people who are having it easy and who are being very successful and are prospering, that Hashem loves them. And those who are suffering, Hashem hates them. That's the wrong attitude. We have to be Erech Ruach. Erech Ruach means to be easy, to be tolerant, to be understanding that there's obviously something beyond our limited understanding of things that only Hashem knows. So how we react towards the events in this world is very important. A person who reacts negatively shows that he's not such a big chacham. If he would be a little bit erech ruach, if he would be a little bit more tolerant and more, I guess, more patient, perhaps later on in his life he would understand a little bit better. Oh, I can see back now and realize how this was okay, this was good. Sometimes just being patient and waiting, erech ruach, take it easy. Don't react immediately to anything. We don't know what the benefits are, but there's always some benefit. That is how we're taught. There's no such a thing as onish min hashamayim. I therefore do not like to use the word onish, punishment. It's all good. Hashem loves us, and everything that happens has something good behind it. Kapara is also good. We just don't see it that way, and we react. So it's a good midah to be erech ruach, because that connects to tova harita v'amireshito. In the end, we will be able to see better what was intended all along. Erech ruach, of course, is also connected with the following pasuk, which deals with anger again. If a person is not erech ruach, he can easily get angry. And when you get angry, it may be very difficult to take back that anger, because when people get angry, they're like drunk. They act in a very irresponsible way. There was one rabbi who told his students, don't ever write a letter when you're angry. I guess we can apply today, don't ever write an email when you're angry. Right? Same thing. If you're angry, you may be saying or writing something that you may regret later on. You're not thinking right. Yeah, there's a story in the Midrash of that Rabbi Eliezer was sick. His students came to see him, to visit him. He was going through pain, a lot of pain. And the rabbis were concerned about it. Rabbi Akiva was laughing or was smiling. He said, "What are you smiling?" He says, "Why are you crying? What are we crying?" There's another similar story with Rabbi Akiva on the Temple Mount.
More lapis.
But this is different. This Midrash talks about visiting somebody who was very, very much in pain. So Rabbi Akiva explained himself. Had our great rabbi not been in any pain throughout his life, right, I would have thought that he got his world in this world. In other words, that Hashem gave him a happy and easy life, and God forbid there will be nothing for him in the world to come. The fact that I see him going through pain is, like we said before, is indicative that Hashem is atoning, Hashem is cleaning him. Sometimes we see a situation that it's hard for us to fathom. How come he's going through this? In some ways, look at it positively. Hashem loves him. Those that he cares about the most, actually, he does clean them up. Those who he cares about the most. And this is a pasuk in Mishlei. Et asher yehav Hashem yochiach. Those that he loves, he rebukes. Those that he doesn't care about as much, he lets them go through life, let them enjoy life. Barely anything bad happens to them. And eventually, of course, upstairs, they find out that this was just a cover-up, in a sense. Those who went through a lot in this life, when they come upstairs and they see that a lot of their debts and their sins, I call them debts, have been completely erased. That's great. Imagine somebody telling you, I just paid your mortgage off. Isn't that great? Great news. You pay our mortgage off. Wouldn't you like to hear that? Get a phone call? We paid your mortgage off. There was a story like that, by the way, years ago, someone whose mortgage was paid off. Great news. When we head upstairs, we don't want to have any mortgages, any debts. So all the painful experiences are a form of kapara. Nothing to be upset about. On the contrary, we need to accept it in a good way. All right. The last pasuk that we'll cover tonight has to do also with ka'as. Al tevahel beruchacha lichos ki ka'as b'chei kesilim yanuach. Don't rush to get angry, because anger on a regular basis especially shows that one is a fool. Ki ka'as b'chei kesilim yanuach. Ka'as, anger, resides only amongst the fools. A person who's smart realizes that it doesn't pay to get angry, to lose his temper. From time to time, of course, there's a need, but as we said before, one has to be in control, not lose control. And as we said before earlier too, this anger refers to Hashem too. Things that happen, don't get angry. One needs to seek advice. He can seek advice. The Torah tells us already a lot of the answers to many of the things that happen with Am Yisrael. Why there's so much trouble, why there's war, why there's famine, lack of rain. The Torah already spells it out. In other words, it doesn't take that, you don't have to be that bright to figure it out. We don't know clearly why things happen. Clearly we never know. We don't have a direct line with him. But the Torah does spell out what certain things mean. There are Mishnayot to tell us what earthquakes are about, what plague is all about. People are expelled, exiled from their country, why that happens. Why were the Jews exiled from Spain? They were having a good life there, more or less, a number of years. For 500 years. Why? Why did it happen? Now, as it's happening, it's hard to figure it out. People are in shock. They have to uproot themselves. They have to leave everything behind, perhaps, their belongings. Why does this happen? If one learns the Torah, you may have a better idea of why certain things happen. But to get angry at Hashem, God forbid. What do we know any better? But that's the relationship between us and Hashem. As it relates to man, the rabbis tell us to be very, very careful not to get angry for the following reason. The majority of the time, we will be guilty of not judging favorably. That's one of the things that people do so little. They do not give the benefit of the doubt. If we would give the person the benefit of the doubt, judge him favorably, many, many times we would not get angry. I give an example of coming home and dinner is not ready. Husband may be tired, may be hungry. It could be one of many, many things that just did not allow the mother, the wife, to prepare dinner on time. All kinds of things. She was stuck in traffic. She was busy with the doctor. Does it happen on a regular basis? Well, then that's a problem. Right? If it happens every single day, things are late, things are not on time, that's something else. But if it happens once in a while, then one has to give the benefit of the doubt. If we were to give the benefit of the doubt, we would not get angry as often.
So that's one of the things that one misses. One fails to do when he gets angry. He's not realized that perhaps he should give the benefit of the doubt. I saw a very nice saying, a cute saying, that when one gets unnecessarily angry, it's like he is spitting up in the air. What happens when you spit up in the air? The spit comes back and lands on you. In other words, when one gets angry just for nothing, the anger just comes back at you. In other words, you didn't accomplish anything with the anger. Why get angry for? If one does have to show anger, then he should do it, of course, in a calm way. That he's upset for this reason, and hopefully it won't repeat itself. But just to get angry by itself doesn't do anything. There was a Hasid, the Midrash tells us, who told his son on his deathbed, if you ever have a reason to get angry at your wife, with your children, I ask you of one favor. I want you to respect me after my death in the same way you respected me during my life. Please follow these instructions. You're about to get angry and upset. Wait one day. In other words, as they say in English, sleep over it. Right?
Sleep on it.
Sleep on it? Yeah. Sleep on it. By the time you wake up the next day, you may not be so angry. You may have calmed down by then. I think this is a great piece of advice for those people who feel that they really have to show their anger, they're really upset. Okay, fine. But first, sleep on it. Right? See how you feel the following day. You may not feel the same. And you know what? I've tried it. I've tried this out. Forget it. Yeah. The following day, you're not, you may still be a little bit upset, but not the same way that you were in the first moment. Because you were all uptight, you were tense, perhaps you were in a bad mood. So very, very good advice that the father gave his son. And I think the second piece of advice he's told him is that hold off, which is the same thing. Hold off with your anger. At the time you're angry, hold off from doing anything, actually. Don't do anything. Don't do any activities, which is similar to what we said before, don't write a letter. He was advising his son, hold off when you're angry from doing anything major at that moment, because your decision may be the wrong decision. Your mind is not focused. You may not have the clarity that you need. So hold off at the time you're angry. Rabbis tell us, as far as anger is concerned, remember the following. Kol ha'ma'avir al midotav, whoever is forgiving, so min hashamayim ma'avirim lo tu. Whoever is forgiving and he doesn't exact revenge, doesn't let out his anger, but he's forgiving, he lets go, he forgets. So b'shamayim midah keneged midah, measure for measure, they're also forgiving. They also let go. So therefore the Midrash says on this, imagine a person is in a river going downstream, he's being swept away by the waters, he's about to drown. And all of a sudden he sees a thin rope, not a very thick rope, but a thin rope, that can actually save his life. He grabs onto it, and sure enough, it is able to hold him back from going down the river, and his life is saved. Many, many times, the rabbis tell us in the Midrash, people are drowning in sin, drowning in debt. The debt is a sin. And here they have a thin rope that can save their life. What's that thin rope? To be ma'avir al midotav. That's called to be forgiving. In other words, rabbis tell us, grab onto the rope called being forgiving. And this may actually save your life from drowning in the debt or in the sins, in all the sins that were committed that were never, that one did never ever repent for. So adapting this midah, this beautiful midah of being forgiving and just, letting things go, let bygones be bygones, as they say in English, and not really being too much of a kapadan, being strict and demanding and exacting about everything, is such a beautiful midah that measure for measure, that is how they will relate to him. So this is really a very, very good way of acquiring forgiveness from Hashem, because we're forgiving with others. Hashem says, I will be forgiving to you. Just to finish up,
Just want to quote the Zohar says that the person who gets angry, it's like he's worshiping an idol. The anger in him is like an idol. In the Zohar quotes the pasuk Toref nafsho be'apo. He's actually uprooting his nefesh, his soul from him. He's removing the Shekhinah from his midst. Whatever he learns, he forgets. Whatever he builds, he destroys. What I think the Zohar meant by whatever he builds, he destroys, is as follows. Imagine, and this I've actually seen it happen. You've done a beautiful mitzvah. You've just done a great deed. You've helped somebody. You went out of your way. You come home, and I guarantee it, somebody will get you angry. Very angry. Why? Because the Yetzer Hara wants to rob that mitzvah from you that you've just made. You just built something, he wants to destroy it. So he's going to tempt you. So be careful. Whenever you do something good, it just may happen that within a half an hour or two, something may prompt you to lose control of yourself. And anger is one of the worst sins. You know, it's not like you're going to murder somebody. It's not like you're going to steal something. It's not like you're going to say Lashon Hara. To get angry is one of the easiest things to do. You know, they didn't put enough salt and pepper, I don't know, in your soup. A person can get angry from almost anything. Be careful if it happens, especially after something good. It could be the Yetzer wants to take away that mitzvah, that credit, that merit that you just acquired, that is so special, and lose it by getting angry. Because that's what the anger will do. It will destroy whatever we just built. And what a shame. Person who gets angry, of course, even if he's a chacham, he's not able to think straight. So many things are lost by getting angry. So what's some quick advice for one who has a problem with anger management? Just some quick advice. We've already spoken about this in the series called Midot, good character. If you haven't participated, they're all at the site EnglishTorahTapes.com. And I think you can get them all on one CD, right, Salomon? All the midas. They will fit in one CD. A very nice series, I think, a very important series about the various characteristic traits that we all need to work on. Kas is definitely something that deserves a lot of attention. But a quick advice, one of the advices that is recommended for a person who has a problem with Kas is train yourself to speak softly. Person who has a problem with Kas, if he trains himself to speak softly and gently, he may not boil over. He may not lose his temper. So that's one advice that is given. You know, if somebody's upset at someone, he shouldn't show it. As much as possible, not show it. Even though we said before it's not a good idea to keep it inside, and you want to vent it, but try to be, as much as possible, handle any matter that you have or dispute in a way that does not show animosity and anger. Very important that if somebody is upset, not to do it in front of children, not to show it in front of guests. Why not show it in front of guests? Because they're going to think you're angry at them. That's what the rabbis tell us. It's not because it doesn't look nice. Oh, it doesn't look nice. No, it's not because of that. The rabbis tell us don't get angry in front of guests because they're going to think you're upset at them. That's you have to be sensitive about that. And be careful not to get angry on Shabbat. It doesn't mean Sunday, Monday is okay. Just that the Shabbat is worse. It's a worse sin to get angry on Shabbat. Anyway, the most important thing is to learn to be noach, to be easygoing. Rabbis tell us people have different kinds of weaknesses when it comes to anger. Some are quick to anger, but they quickly subside. Some take long to get angry and long to calm down. None of those are good. The worst one, however, is the one that gets angry often. Even though he calms down quickly, the fact that he's getting angry so often is not a good sign. It shows a lack of faith, a lack of bitachon in Hashem. Why are you getting angry? What are you going to... People are people. People are different. You're always going to run into people who you may not like so much. You're always going to run into situations which you do not approve of. You may run into a bureaucracy. You go to Israel, you're going to get easily upset at the bureaucracy there. The way they treat you, the way they talk at you. So what are you going to do about it? You're going to fix the world. And you can't run away from it either. You're there. So you have to understand it. So as we said before, tov acharit davar merishito. Just think what you want to accomplish. I want to get there. I want to get what I want. Come back tomorrow, they'll tell you. If you have to, you come back tomorrow. What are you going to do? You're going to yell at the clerk? Right? We don't always think about these things because we're upset at the moment. Tov acharit davar, always think about the end. Very good advice, was to see the whole picture. But obviously, it's easier to say than to do. To implement all of this advice is not easy. Nonetheless, if we review it and we learn it continuously, we will see many of these advices in various other books too. They're called Sifrei Musar, books on ethics, whether it's Chovat HaLevavot, whether it's Mesilat Yesharim, whether it's Orchot Tzadikim. This is our battery charger. We need to recharge ourselves. We eat food that is the fuel of the body, but what about the fuel of the neshama? The neshama needs stimulants too. It needs to be encouraged. So Baruch Hashem, we have the Shabbat. We don't work. We abstain from physical work. But we have our character. We have our temper. We have our mood swings. What about them? Listening to good music occasionally is helpful too. But as we said before, the music by itself is not enough. It's learning Torah. It's reviewing stories of tzaddikim perhaps. Learning Sifrei Musar. These are the kinds of things that give encouragement, they give us strength, they weaken the Yetzer Hara, they remind us, they give us clarity, they enable us to focus. Without it, we're really, really lost. Unless you're such an angel. There are people, they're such angels that they can't even hurt a fly. All right. They don't need it as much. But most of us, the average human being, does need to be encouraged, does need to be around good people, happy people, does need to hopefully have friends, good friends and positive. We all need these things. Without them, we're lonely. We can be sad and depressed. And God forbid, especially somebody who's going through a painful experience, loss of money, loss of somebody dear to him, how is he going to cope with this? So obviously, it's important that we learn Torah, that we learn the words of the Chachamim, and Sefer Kohelet as well as Sefer Mishlei, and Pirkei Avot, by the way, are excellent sources of chokhmah, of tremendous advice and wisdom in life, in all areas of life. We finished up today with Kas, and next week we're going to go into something else completely. But even though we've spoken a lot about Kas, you should know we haven't said enough. There's a lot more to be said about Kas. Anger is very, very destructive. He didn't get into that. He was just telling us how it's so silly, how it's such a waste of time. But anger is really very destructive. I've heard of many, many situations where friendships, relationships have completely broken down because of anger and because of abuse, verbal abuse, which is all pretty much the same thing. It's very difficult to repair. Very difficult to repair once it has gone to that level. So as we said before, Tova Harid Davar Merishito, remember this important pasuk. Always focus on what you want to achieve. What's the most important thing in life? A good relationship, a good marriage, a good friendship, a stable home, to be happy, to be healthy, to be calm. And of course, if we adapt this important idea in our mind, then hopefully we will follow through and we will hopefully have better control of the Yetzer Hara. Sometimes it happens, we lose it. If you lost it, then you say, I'm sorry. That's very difficult for some people to do. But saying those words helps to stop the damage. If you don't say I'm sorry and you've gotten angry for 7 days in a row or for several months in a row, all the scars, all the injuries, the emotional pain that has accumulated will be very difficult to repair. Once you say I'm sorry, once you make up, as we said before, you embrace with the right hand because you said no with your left hand, then there's a chance of salvaging here because it shows you're only human. You're not arrogant and you're not a macho. Yeah. And of course that takes humbleness. That takes realization that there are more important things in life than our selfish expectations. But if a person doesn't really learn Torah and Musar, I guarantee you he's going to have a hard time with it because a marriage counselor cannot do that much.
There has to be a will, there has to be a desire, a sincere interest in correcting our faults. If you don't have a will, then you're not going to go get help for alcohol, no help for drugs, no help for anger, no help for anything. There has to be a true desire. And the Torah is one of the greatest venues from which we can, B'ezrat Hashem, get that help. Thank you.
Good.